Hello, everyone. This is Flor Dorsley Moore. I'm the director for Berkeley College's online campus career services team. And I'm presenting today a presentation on phone etiquette and voicemail messaging. So a little bit about myself. I have worked with Berkeley College since April of 2014. But before that, I've worked at on-the-ground campuses. I worked at an online campus as well, and most of my experience is in career services. So I'm very happy to be here at Berkeley and assisting students of all different backgrounds. And hopefully this information that we're going to share with you today will help you not just in general in speaking over the phone and recording messages, but also certainly during your job or internship search or, in any career development practices or, efforts that you are making to move forward in your career. So first I want to talk about the topics that I'm going to be covering in this webinar. Really, it's all to help you be more effective and help you to answer the phone in a way that will, receive the caller a little bit better. Certainly, we've had some students that have expressed to us, they don't get calls back, or that they are not sure how to conduct themselves over the phone, or want to have advice on how to do that. So I've split this webinar in 3 parts. The first part is preparation before the call. Secondly, we're going to talk about what to do and keep aware of while you're calling, and then leaving a message, some of the key things to keep in mind. So part 1. It's all about preparing in advance. You want to have prepared in advance what you want to say. You might even want to practice a little bit if you're not sure. And then, if you have to leave a message, you want to maybe have a little cheat sheet of the key points that you want to cover. You want to try to be brief, of course, because sometimes, if you ramble on, which I have a tendency to do, admittedly, you might lose your caller's attention, or you may run out of time for the recording. You want to make sure in preparing for the call that you write out, what you absolutely want to leave in a message if you have to leave a message, because often you will. So the employer, if it's an employer that you're speaking with, you want to mention the position that you're calling about. If you're calling from Berkeley or calling to Berkeley, you want to leave the ID number that you have, the date and the time then you called, and also when you would be available to be called back. If you have an unusual name, of course you want to spell out your name, leave a number that you want to be called back to if that is possible. Also, find a quiet area to speak, free from distractions and noise. Put the babies away, and make sure you have the TV off, and it's a quiet space. If your call happens to be happening via Skype or video phone, you want to make sure that the area around you looks neat and professional as well. So definitely I would recommend, if you have a headset, to go ahead and use that. Sometimes it gives a much clearer reception and your hands can be free to take notes. But don't use a speakerphone, because sometimes that cuts off your communications. I've spoken with students sometimes. I know that they've put me on speakerphone, especially a speakerphone on their cell phone, and I can't hear everything that they're saying, and sometimes what I'm saying gets cut off. If possible, ideally you would be calling on a landline, because that often gives the best reception. But sometimes you can get very clear reception with a cell phone that's fully charged and has an excellent signal. So also consider the timing of your call, especially if you're in a different time zone. Sometimes I'll get messages from students that have called very, very early in the morning or late at night when I've long gone. And, you need to be mindful of that, especially if you're communicating with an employer, that they may not be able to call you right back if you're not calling at a time when normally, office hours are in session. And if you plan to call back, tell them when and if you want them to call you back. Have a date and time identified in advance. So again, this is when you're leaving a message or when you're speaking with someone and you're speaking at an opportune time for them. Just be ready to reschedule if you need to. Please also make sure that your voicemail is established. This is the biggest, if you hear nothing else from what I'm talking about today, this is probably the biggest concern that our employers have reported to us and me, myself, when I'm reaching out to students and grads. I want to speak with them on something very important, and they don't even have a voicemail because they use their phone mostly for texting. So make sure that you take the time to do this, and make sure that it sounds, the voicemail message that you set up sounds professional and identifies you. So, I've had people leave 5 minutes of the latest hot song, as music on their voicemail, and that's not necessarily the most professional thing. Sometimes I hear a baby's voice. You want it to at least be your voice, and if you don't want to leave your name, then at least let them know the number to which they have called. So what to do during the call. So if you've prepared well in advance, during the call you shouldn't look like this. You shouldn't be shocked. It shouldn't be too crazy. Always be ready to answer a scheduled call for the duration that you've agreed upon. Nothing looks more unprofessional than having someone call you when they had scheduled the time and you not being prepared. So if your plans have changed unexpectedly, because things happen, let the caller know immediately and be prepared to reschedule right away if you can. And if you're not ready for an unscheduled call, if somebody's calling you at a time that's not good for you, then don't pick up the phone. It might be best to let it go to voicemail. Hopefully you've set up your voicemail. And then get ready to return the call as soon as possible. Check your voicemail. That's the second thing. If I can tell people, something to remember, if you have a voicemail set up, the next step is to, of course, check to make sure that somebody has left you a message so you can respond. Have a notepad, pencil, pen ready to take notes during the call so that you don't have to scramble and say, "Oh, I'm sorry, let me hold on 1 second while I get a pen." You want to be ready. If they're going to be giving you important information or you're going to be asking questions, you want to write things down or be ready to type the answers with your computer screen up and ready to go. And make the call a priority. I think call waiting is one of the worst things invented. You don't want to put somebody who's made the time to speak with you on hold unless it's in a dire emergency, and especially not when you're talking to an employer. So, be mindful of their time. And also, if you're having difficulty hearing the caller, it's important for you to be able to express that. Say that in a polite way. "I'm sorry, I'm having trouble hearing you," or "Excuse me, but I hear a lot of feedback," something like that. Alternatively, if the other caller is having trouble hearing you and is, requesting, that they that you eliminate some background noise, respond to that in a polite way as well. And remember to speak clearly into the mouthpiece and smile because, that can be conveyed, believe it or not, through your voice over the phone. It just helps the call to continue to be pleasant. And one last thing, during the call, to keep track of the timing of your call with a clock or a watch. Most calls are short. They're not asking for you to be on the phone for longer usually than 30 minutes or so. So part 3, leaving a message. Make it a habit to leave your contact information right up front at the very beginning of your voicemail. This will help for you not to get cut off. If somebody has a very short time period to leave a voicemail message, this is usually the case with answering machines, which are sometimes a bygone relic. I don't know if anybody really still uses answering machines, but if you leave your contact information at the very beginning and also at the end of your message, then, people are more likely to be able to get that information. That's your name, your phone number, your ID if you're calling somebody at Berkeley, of course. Always state who the voice message is for, because if you're calling for someone specific and you're calling a general mailbox, then you want to make sure that that message gets forwarded. So try to slow down when you pronounce words. I know for myself, I have a tendency to speak very quickly. So you want to make sure that you're pronouncing the words clearly so that people can understand. And then, of course, state what specific action or actions that you want the recipient to take. If you want them to call you back, if you want to give them a little bit of detail as to why you're calling, so that they can maybe do a little bit of research or do something for you before they call you back, or if you want to give them some kind of direction. Leave a message with modulated tone. All right, don't speak too loudly or too softly. Try to vary the tone, but make it even so that they can hear you throughout the message. I have people that speak in a monotone like this all the time, and it makes it a little bit difficult sometimes to listen to your voice. So, try to make your communication, your conversation as clear as possible. Another tip on here is no chewing while speaking. I think this is a no-brainer, but believe it or not, I have spoken to students who are eating while they're talking to me. Maybe, it's during their lunch break and they think I won't hear. So, make sure that you keep the phone, close to your mouth, and not moving it around too much, because all of these things make it difficult to understand you and can frustrate your listener. Okay, so of course, keep your voicemail message simple and concise. A message that's too long can sometimes show lack of professionalism or lack of preparation. You don't want somebody bored and, kind of listening to you ramble. If you've not heard back within a week or so, try contacting your career counselor or the person again for whom that you've left the message. You want to get their assistance. You are interested. You can show your enthusiasm, especially if this is an employer. And if it's, your career counselor that you reach out to, you can get some feedback from them, because we're always here, willing to assist you. So that's it. That's my quick tips for phone etiquette and leaving a voicemail message. If you have more questions or if you want more information, just reach out to our career services team. My phone number is right there on the screen and my email address, but our general mailbox is careerservicesonline@berkeleycollege.edu. Thanks so much for your attention.